another club with fairly deep pockets, Newcastle United, of course. Marc Guehi, is that inching closer? The 24-year-old English centre-back was amazing at the Euros and really rose to prominence, and it looks like Newcastle may get a deal done. Is that the case?
Yeah, ongoing on this one. Newcastle are trying to get a deal over the line for Marc Guehi, aware that maybe some other clubs might come to the table for the England international, so they want to get a deal wrapped up pretty quickly. But Eddie Howe has admitted that he is probably a bit short of numbers right now, and he would like to bring in some defensive reinforcements. He's got the likes of Jamal Lascelles, Sven Botman, both recovering from long-term injuries, so he wants to bring in more quality and cover in that defence, and Guehi would be a top signing. The issue probably is trying to agree a fee with Crystal Palace. It's going to be a big fee now for Guehi, who's really enhanced his reputation with his performances for England at the Euros. So you're going to be looking at £60 million plus, maybe even higher. And I think that's probably the sticking point right now, is to try and agree a fee. They've had one bid rejected of over £50 million, and Palace will be holding out for top dollar because they don't really want to lose such a key man as Guehi, but I'm sure the player as well would be interested in a move to Newcastle if a deal can be agreed between the clubs.
And is that the kind of deal that we hope and Newcastle hopes to get done before opening weekend and long before, so he can slot in for that opening match day?
Yeah, I'm sure in an ideal world, Eddie Howe would love to get a deal done for Marc Guehi as soon as possible, have him in the building ahead of the start of the Premier League next weekend, but it all depends on if the two clubs can agree a fee. I don't think personal terms will be any major issues. I'm sure that could be agreed pretty quickly, and as I said, if once that fee is agreed between the clubs, I do fully expect this move to speed up, and as I said, Newcastle and Eddie Howe would love to start the new season with Marc Guehi in their starting 11, because I think he showed at the Euros he's one of the best young centre-backs in Europe, and it can only be a bonus for Newcastle if they can get him in.
Definitely, and Newcastle, for other reinforcements, seem to be looking for more established veterans around Europe. Looking at Adrian Rabiot as a potential free transfer to bring him in after leaving Juventus, does this potentially help them avoid some PSR problems, and is this a deal you could see them getting done?
I'd be surprised. It's not a priority area for Newcastle, trying to bring in another central midfielder, but when you've got a player of the calibre of Rabiot available on a free transfer, you'd be foolish not to look at it. He's a proven winner during his time with France and Juventus, so I'm sure it's not just Juventus looking at Rabiot. He's probably the most desirable free agents on the market right now as well, but even as a free agent, it doesn't come as a cheap deal. There'll be big wages to be paid to try and win the race for Rabiot, and signing on fees as well. So I just think Newcastle's priority probably isn't a midfielder right now. If they can get Guehi done, I think the next target would be a wide right winger that they can bring in, who can maybe improve their attacking options. So I think Rabiot is not top priority right now, and I would be surprised if Newcastle did firm up their interest in him.
For sure, and you talk about Newcastle's need for a right winger, and Rafinha, one who comes to mind immediately, obviously with the rise to prominence of Lamine Yamal. Do you see them meeting the valuation that Barcelona is looking for? Is this a player that Newcastle has real interest in?
I'm sure it's a player that Newcastle would love to sign, but I just don't see how a deal is viable. I think Barcelona are looking big money for Rafinha, which might put him out of Newcastle's range in this current transfer market, and also the player himself is determined to fight for his place at Barcelona. He's in no rush to leave, despite the club trying to offload him. There has been offers and interest from Saudi Arabia, but Rafinha has rejected them because he doesn't want to move there. He wants to stay at Barcelona. So there's a lot of obstacles, I think, in the way for any possible deal to Newcastle, and I just think he might be out of their price range, and I don't see maybe Rafinha making that move to Newcastle, as he does seem quite determined to stay at Barcelona.
Is there a name sticking out to you at that right wing spot for Newcastle?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be looking at a number of targets. They have looked at Jared Bowen at West Ham. He's on their list, but again, another hard deal to do due to the price tag on his head. Anthony Elanga at Nottingham Forest is another player that the club admire, so it'll be interesting to see if they maybe follow up their interest on either of those two players before the close of the window.
And of course, exits have always been a concern for Newcastle with their biggest stars. Bruno Guimaraes is one of those guys at 26 years old, looking maybe to reach a higher level as he enters his prime, but has recently said this morning he's happy at Newcastle. Is this still one to keep an eye on as the window comes to a close? We know Manchester City has serious interest, as well as Arsenal.
Yeah, I don't expect Bruno Guimaraes to move in this window. As you said, the player himself has indicated that he is happy and content at St James's Park, and I'm sure Eddie Howe won't be contemplating letting the Brazilian leave so late in the window. And also his release clause has now expired, so there's no fears from Newcastle that maybe if somebody met that £100 million release clause he could leave. There has been talk of interest from Manchester City and Arsenal, and I'm sure that interest does remain there, but I just don't see Newcastle entertaining any offers for Bruno between now and the end of the close of the transfer window.